right now, somewhere in Silicon Valley, there is a tech executive who is probably tracking his sleep architecture with a titanium ring.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And he's, monitoring his blood sugar with an implanted patch and measuring his biological aging through a DNA methylation clock.
Spending millions of dollars, I'm sure.
Millions just sitting in hyperbaric oxygen chambers, restricting his calories, all in this really desperate, highly calculated bid to live to 120.
Right.
Meanwhile, the only human being in recorded history who actually did live past 120 spent her time eating, like, roughly 2 pounds of chocolate a week,
That's the best part.
pouring olive oil on literally everything, and casually smoking cigarettes.
I mean, it really is the ultimate irony of the whole modern longevity movement, isn't it?
It really is.
We have somehow turned the pursuit of a long life into this highly stressful, hyper-optimized full-time job. But when you look at the historical data, the people who actually break these records, they weren't optimizing much of anything at all.
Yeah, exactly. Which is exactly why we are pulling apart this topic today. We are looking at a brilliant, deeply grounding article from Psychology Today. It's by Christine Louise Holbaum, and it's titled Love, Life, and Longevity: Who Wants to Be Forever Young?
It's a great piece.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for you, the listener, today isn't to list off the top 10 supplements you should be taking.
No, please no.
Right, or to review the latest continuous glucose monitor. We really want to cut through all that clinical, sterile noise of the biohacking world. We want to explore not just how we might push our biology to its absolute limits, but why we are doing it in the first place.
Exactly.
And, what actually makes those extra decades of life biologically and psychologically sustainable.
What's fascinating here is how this intensely modern, data-driven obsession really clashes with ancient philosophy.
Oh, how so?
Well, we are using cutting-edge cellular science to answer a question that, frankly, thinkers have been wrestling with for millennia. I mean, Plato famously wrote that an unexamined life is not worth living. Yet, when you look at the current landscape of longevity clinics and anti-aging influencers, the primary focus for an entire segment of society has shifted completely.
It's just about the numbers now.
It is. It's no longer about how to live a rich, examined life, but simply how long we can keep the biological machinery running. So, we are attempting to shift your focus today from the raw extension of time to the texture of that time.
I love that phrase, the texture of that time. And I want to start by looking at the anomaly we mentioned at the very top of the show, because she really is the high score holder of human life. And her story completely upends the modern narrative.
The ultimate outlier.
The ultimate outlier. I am talking, of course, about Jeanne Calment. According to Guinness World Records, she holds the title for the longest verified human lifespan. 122 years and 164 days.
Unbelievable.
Born in France in 1875 and passing away in 1997. And if you just think about the sweep of history she witnessed, it's just mind-bending.
It really is.
She was born before cinematography even existed. Wow.
Yet she lived to see the early days of the internet. She lived through 2 world wars, the invention of antibiotics, the moon landing.
To hold that much historical context in a single lifetime is just staggering.
Yeah.
Because the sheer volume of technological and cultural adaptation required to go from, a world of horse-drawn carriages to a world of global email networks, it requires an extraordinary level of psychological flexibility.
And what I find so refreshing about her, especially when you compare her to the really strict wellness regimens we see today.
Oh, yeah, the fasting.
Right, where people are fasting for exactly 16 hours and avoiding sugar like it's radioactive. Jeanne just didn't optimize. Like I said, chocolate, wine, the occasional cigarette.
Yeah.
It feels to me like treating the human body like a rigid math equation just ignores the joy of the variables. We try to perfectly control every biological input, assuming it will guarantee an output, but Jeanne was just out there living the variables. I see the appeal of that narrative, totally. But from a scientific standpoint, we do have to be very careful not to romanticize her smoking.
Sure. Not saying go smoke.
Right. Or her chocolate intake as the actual cause of her longevity. The truth is, Jeanne won the ultimate genetic lottery.
Right. The genes matter.
They do. She likely carried highly specific protective gene variants that buffered her against the cellular damage of those habits. But what is far more relevant to us, and what we actually can replicate, isn't her DNA.
Okay, so what is it?
It is her environmental buffering. Specifically, her intense social network.
You mean the fact that she was constantly cycling through town and playing tennis?
That definitely. But more importantly, the psychological resilience she had to develop. Think about the basic math of living to 122.
Okay.
Over the course of her life, she married a prosperous shop owner back in 1896, right? But she outlived him.
Wow.
She outlived her daughter.
Oh, man.
And she outlived her grandson.
That is, I mean, the psychological weight of that kind of compounding grief is something most of us can barely comprehend. It usually breaks people.
Exactly. It breaks people. But she didn't retreat. She maintained her social engagement. She attended concerts. She gathered with friends.
She stayed active.
Right. Those social anchors kept her nervous system grounded. She didn't isolate herself in a sterile bubble to protect her physical health. She immersed herself in her community to maintain her vitality.
So we aren't all born with Jeanne Calment's genetic lottery ticket, obviously. Which brings us back to the modern pursuit. We turn to science to try and manufacture that kind of longevity.
Yes, we do.
We see this at places like the Buck Institute for Research on Aging in California, which is at the absolute forefront of aging biology. And for you listening who follows this space, you know the scientific consensus has shifted away from simply extending lifespan.
Right, just the number of years.
Right, toward optimizing health span, the number of years lived well. But the friction here is how we are actually going about it.
Right, because the scientific mechanics of extending health span have become incredibly sophisticated.
Like what?
Well, researchers aren't just looking at keeping the heart beating anymore. They are looking at cellular senescence. They are identifying what they call zombie cells.
Zombie cells.
Yeah, zombie cells. These are cells that have stopped dividing, but they refuse to die. And instead, they just sit in your tissue secreting inflammatory cytokines.
Oh, that sounds awful.
It is. That inflammation accelerates aging across all your organ systems. So modern longevity science is heavily focused on developing senolytics to clear those cells out, or, finding ways to boost NAD+ levels to restore mitochondrial function.
So what does this all mean? I mean, if we are getting so good at clearing out zombie cells and optimizing our mitochondria, but we are completely ignoring the psychological weight of those extra decades, aren't we missing the point?
We might be.
Because if you clear the senescent cells, but the person has no reason to get out of bed, what is the biological payoff?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it brings up a profound existential dilemma. And this is something Christine Louise Holbaum highlights through the work of filmmaker David Donnelly.
Right, the documentary.
Yes. Donnelly directed a documentary called Forever Young. And it was driven by his own midlife realization that aging is deeply personal. It affects us and literally everyone we love.
Yeah.
So he embedded himself in the longevity movement, looking at the science, but he quickly realized the conversation was entirely skewed toward the technological can. Can we clear the senescent cells? Can we reverse the methylation clock?
But no one is asking what we're saving those cells for.
Precisely. Donnelly asks a central question in the article. He says, without purpose and meaning, what's the point of living longer in the first place?
That is the million-dollar question.
He recognized that the existential burden of a 100-plus-year health span is just completely absent from the mainstream conversation. If we manage to maintain the biological autonomy of a 40-year-old well into our 90s, but we haven't cultivated the psychological depth to navigate that time.
We are just prolonging emptiness.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because if you look at the data, we are currently failing spectacularly at the purpose and meaning part of the equation.
Oh, absolutely.
We are living through this incredible paradox. At the exact historical moment where we are technologically mastering the biomarkers of health span, our society is facing unprecedented, record-breaking levels of anxiety, depression, and loneliness.
It is the great longevity paradox. We have the highest rates of clinical anxiety ever recorded, running completely parallel to the greatest advancements in cellular biology.
And the irony is that the very tools we are using to extend our health span might actually be exacerbating the problem.
How so?
Well, for you listening, think about the culture of self-optimization right now. We track our resting heart rates, our blood oxygen, the precise duration of our deep sleep, the exact number of steps we take.
Yes, the constant tracking.
We have actually created a phenomenon called orthosomnia.
Oh, right.
People who are literally losing sleep because they are so stressed out about their sleep tracker scores. To me, it is like obsessively polishing the exterior of a high-performance sports car, making sure the paint is flawless and the tires are perfectly pressurized, but completely ignoring the fact that there is no engine under the hood.
That analogy tracks perfectly with what the data is showing us. You have a perfectly polished chassis, but no engine to actually drive anywhere.
Right.
And Donnelly give a very clear warning regarding this. He argues that as we successfully extend our biological health span, mental hygiene must be prioritized with the exact same rigor as physical biomarkers.
Mental hygiene, it's a great phrase.
It really is.
But it forces a hard look at our daily habits. Are you, as the listener, sacrificing your mental well-being simply to hit a metric? Are you skipping a late-night meandering conversation with a friend who really needs you just because your app says you need to be asleep by 9:30 p.m. to optimize your recovery score? Are you choosing the solitary, perfectly controlled environment of your treadmill over a messy, unpredictable dinner party because you need to control your caloric intake?
I would argue that many people in the biohacking space are doing exactly that.
Really?
Yeah, because the biometric numbers offer a false sense of control. If my app says my heart rate variability is optimal, I feel safe. But mental hygiene isn't just a philosophical nicety, it is a biological imperative.
A biological imperative. Explain that.
The science clearly shows that isolating yourself to control your physical inputs actually destroys your biology from the inside out.
Which brings us to the actual definitive answer to what secures long-term well-being. Because if clearing zombie cells and tracking sleep isn't enough, we need to know what the ultimate biomarker actually is.
And we do now.
We do. And the answer comes from one of the most comprehensive, exhaustive psychological studies ever conducted, the Harvard Study of Adult Development.
Yes, this study is the gold standard. I mean, they track the lives of individuals for over 80 years.
80 years. That's incredible.
Just looking for the common denominators of a long, healthy life. And their conclusion cuts through every single modern wellness trend.
And what was it?
Strong relationships are the single greatest predictor of long-term health and happiness. Period.
Wow.
It is not your cholesterol levels at age 50. It is not your VO2 max. It is the quality and depth of your human connections.
And the biological flip side of that data is what really stops you in your tracks. The researchers warn that chronic social isolation is as harmful to your body as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
Let that sink in, 15 cigarettes.
It's wild.
But how does that actually work? Because intuitively, sitting alone in your house doesn't feel the same as inhaling toxic smoke into your lungs.
It doesn't feel the same, but it comes down to evolutionary biology and how the brain processes isolation. Humans are a deeply social species. We evolved to survive in tribes.
Right. Safety in numbers.
Exactly. When you are socially isolated, your brain's amygdala registers that lack of connection, not just as sadness, but as an acute survival threat. It essentially tells your body you are separated from the herd, you are in danger.
So your body goes into a defensive state.
Exactly. It traps your nervous system in a chronic fight-or-flight state. Your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis stays activated, just flooding your system with cortisol.
Ah, the stress hormone.
Right. And over time, that chronic flood of stress hormones drives up systemic inflammation. And that inflammation literally stiffens your arteries, it degrades your cognitive function, and it accelerates cellular aging at the exact same physiological rate as inhaling the toxins from a pack of cigarettes.
Wow. So you can eat all the organic kale in the world, you can take your sanalytics, you can sit in an ice bath every single morning.
Yeah.
But if you are deeply isolated, your body is tearing itself apart with cortisol. It connects right back to Jeanne Calment, actually. Her true longevity hack wasn't a supplement. It was the fact that her social calendar acted as an environmental buffer against stress. Her vagal tone was likely incredibly strong because she was constantly interacting with people, which told her nervous system that she was safe.
This raises an important question, though.
What's that?
Well, knowing the biological mechanics of loneliness, how do we actually shift a culture that is so entrenched in individual, solitary data tracking back toward community?
That is tough.
It is. But David Donnelly didn't just point out the problem in his documentary. He actually created a structural solution.
Yeah.
He actively encourages people to host virtual and in-person screenings of Forever Young.
Oh, I love that approach. He isn't just saying, hey, go make friends, which, let's be honest, is incredibly difficult for adults to do.
So it's so hard.
He is providing a central hub, like a shared experience.
Right. He wants people to gather and debate the meaning behind longevity, not just the science of it. He is using the technology and the media not to isolate us on our couches, but to facilitate the exact type of community gathering that his film argues is biologically necessary for a good life.
It is the perfect application of the science.
Right.
So as we bring this deep dive in for a landing, we really want to connect this directly back to you, the listener. The ultimate takeaway from Holbaum's article and Donnelly's work isn't to throw your fitness tracker in the trash.
No, definitely not.
Right. The Buck Institute's work on senescent cells is vital, and tracking your metabolic health is an incredibly useful tool.
They are crucial tools, but they're only half of the architecture of a long life.
Precisely. The real insight here is recognizing that the most important metric for your health span isn't a biometric that can be synced to your phone.
Right.
It is how and with whom you choose to spend your time. If you truly want to prepare your body for a long, vital life, you have to recognize that a messy, emotionally resonant conversation with a good friend might actually do more to lower your systemic inflammation than hitting 10,000 solitary steps on a treadmill.
And I want to leave you with a final lingering thought to mull over today, building directly on the biology of connection we just unpacked.
Okay, let's hear it.
If the Harvard study is right, and 8 decades of physiological data suggest it is, if isolation triggers a cortisol cascade that equates to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, are the hyper-optimized biohackers actually accelerating their own demise?
Oh, wow.
Right. In their solitary, obsessive pursuit of biological perfection, locked in their perfectly controlled, isolated environments, are they ironically triggering the very cellular decay they are spending millions of dollars to avoid?
That is a phenomenal question, and it brings us right back to the beginning. You can't just polish the exterior of the chassis and expect to reach a meaningful destination if you have completely neglected to build the engine.
That's exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Take some time to step back, look at the variables in your own routine, and maybe prioritize a connection over a metric today. Because an examined, deeply connected life is the only kind of life truly worth extending. See you next time.